look at that sunflower. Amazing. Cool. All right. Well, let's go ahead and sort of kick things off here. We got a few people probably still rolling in from other panels and whatnot. Welcome. Thank you all for being here to talk about youth creative empowerment. And we got some really cool folks here. Two folks that I've met and one I've not had the pleasure yet of meeting, but just three really amazing organizations joining us today. Very honored. And for those of you who don't know the deal, or this is maybe your first panel, my name is Mike Young, and I am a writer and researcher for Creative Startups. And we're an organization working with the New Mexico EDD to come up with a strategic plan for the new Creative Industries Division, which is a new division of the Economic Development Department designed to support people making a living in the creative economy. And we've been, this is Creative Industries Week. We've been doing lots of really great conversations. I just left a conversation with Jen Joy Robal and Lauren Kaysen about media production tools and AR. It was awesome. And so excited to be joined here today by representatives from three really cool, really innovative youth-focused organizations because um, there is more to life than making money, and life starts at a certain point, and the skills that we learn as young people, we carry with us throughout all our lives. So really excited to be joined by folks from Moving Arts Española, True Kids One, and the Zuni Youth Enrichment Project. And we'll just sort of roll right into it. I think we'll go alphabetical order by last name, and we'll start here with Pete Monroe, who is the director of media at True Kids One. So, welcome, Pete. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. You got a cool green screen behind you. Tell us a little bit about True Kids One, about what you do, and how you bring kids into creativity.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm filling in for Sandy Campbell. He's our executive director. I'm the director of media. And True Kids One has been around, I believe, since 2017. It kind of started as a radio project, and it kind of slowly blossomed into what it is today, which is a lot of different things. But basically, our mission in general is to inspire young learners in the community around them to create, communicate, and safely navigate the digital world. That sort of is how it's all boiled down. We have a lot of different programs that I can talk about, but just to sort of touch on certain things that we do, that we try to do, or values. We really want to try to aim to have digital media be a positive force in the community. We want to create economic and personal opportunities. We also do, we do media and technology. So we have kids breaking down computers and making them work, like a little bit of a computer repair shop. We also teach about technology, because we live in a very different world than we did, say, 30 years ago. We have computers in our pockets. We're staring at screens all the time. And I think we all know that it's not the utopia maybe that some of the people that design these things might have hoped. So that's kind of also part of what we do. So yeah, I mean, we're teaching about technology as well. We have a lot of different after school programs. I'm a filmmaker. That's my background. I came on in 2021. I started doing a lowrider documentary. A lot of what we do is mentorship. We're showing kids, we're giving kids tools is kind of how I see it. It's, I mean, I know that at some point our mission has kind of changed. And at some point there was this discussion about civic engagement. And, to me, putting a camera into a kid's hands is civic engagement. You're giving them a voice. You're giving them a lens to see the world and a mode to express themselves. And it's an expensive tool. And so we're kind of this like, we're in this really great spot right now to be, you know, not only giving kids tools, but giving them the skills to understand the tools and how to really maximize, because when you learn these things, when you learn how this stuff works, I mean, it's, it's miraculous what the things you can do and the art that you can create. So I think that there's a big element of, you know, teaching them technical things so that they can better express themselves artistically. It kind of goes hand in hand. Um, and we have, as far as I know, one of the only LGBTQ plus IA programs in Taos, an after school program called Queerius, run by one of our other filmmakers on staff, Daniela Cervantes. And we just wrapped up our fourth in a series of what we call future dialogues, where we sort of create a theme. We did water, food, forests, and community, and we had all these different students make all these different kind of short form documentaries type videos exploring these different issues. And so, we're very documentary focused, but all the filmmakers on staff are hoping that we sort of begin to branch out, because I really, especially, all the filmmakers believe that, it doesn't have to be real life. Obviously, it's very important, but it can be fiction, and you can change the world with fictional stories. Did I miss anything?
No, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Pete. Yeah, that's so cool. And that's so cool that you got started working on a lowrider documentary. I have some questions about that, but it's
We'll
also a
sidebar
wonderful,
later.
yeah, we'll side, but yeah, it's also a great transition to introducing our next guest, who is over there in the lowrider capital of the world. And we're just very honored to have the esteemed Roger Montoya here, founder, co-founder, right? Founder, of Moving Arts Española. And yeah, just really amazing, person has done amazing work. So thank you, so much for being here, Roger. And maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background and about what Moving Arts Española, does and what it's up to these days. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for the introduction. It was really amazing to just listen to Pete just now, because Pete's been part of Moving Arts for the last 5 years or more in helping us think about the digital media aspects of programming for our project here. So thank you, Pete. It's great to
Thank
hear
you.
you, and I'm so
Thank you,
proud
Roger.
that you're at True Kids One. Moving Arts is a nonprofit that began 17 years ago. It's backloaded with 25 years of experience in the region of Española. When I returned from New York City as a choreographer, an actor, a visual artist, um, I turned my focus to the youth of this valley, who were really just underserved and undernourished in a landscape so beautiful and rich culturally, linguistically, historically. It just shocked me that the um, the lack of opportunity was really holding them back. So I found an urgency, a purpose to devote the rest of my life to ensuring that the arts were threaded into every possible place that I could. So I founded an Arts in the Schools program that ran for about 15 years in all of the elementary schools. We brought in about $4 million of legislative funding through the Fine Arts Education Act. We had 75 artists. It was creative, crazy, chaotic, controlled environment. That was really kind of off-putting for some of the administrators, but it was so enriching. Moving Arts emerged as an after-school program in 2008 from that bedrock of just vibrancy, right? When you have that many, 3,000 kids, 278 classrooms, sort of exploring and tasting what the arts could bring to public education. And for me, it was a great experience. So we began just teaching visual art, drama in the very beginning, and dance. Since then, over the course of the years, we've added in responsively to the needs of the community an award-winning meal service that has a culinary track. We serve something like 97,000 meals in the last 6 years have been served out of our site. We have a chef, a sous chef, and 5 interns that are high school students paid $16 an hour to learn to do peer education, to understand family-centered nutrition, and also to prepare great meals for everyone. It's all free. We've also added a career technical education arm recently since COVID that really focuses on 14 to 25-year-olds and the critical need for dual credit and the sort of nourishing mentorship that Pete was speaking about, but in a really wide way, not just centered around career technical education, but belonging in an environment where everyone feels inspired to create. We teach children from 3 to 25 up to young adults in the widest array of art forms, I think, anywhere in the state for a nonprofit. We have 5 types of dance, 5 types of music. We have drama. We have filmmaking, digital media, sculpture, painting, drawing, fashion design, gymnastics for over 200 youth at a very high level, classical ballet. It's intentionally a smorgasbord of opportunities so that any child or family member can come in and just be inspired, curious to navigate through art making. The intention is not to create a Juilliard masterful pianist or classical ballerina necessarily. It's to arm our kids with the tools to succeed wherever they go in the world. We know that the backdrop is layered in trauma and violence and drug addiction. I mean, these horrific things that plague so many communities, especially rural ones across the nation. But Española is well known for the wrong things. And that level of trauma, adverse childhood experiences, limits so radically the potential of these young people to advance. So part of our core mission at Moving Arts is to address that lovingly and vibrantly in a space that is just, well, glowing with care and intention. There's probably a lot more I could speak to, with our theme. I don't want to go on too long. I'm sure questions might come up. It's just the deepest honor in closing of my life to be able to devote the time and the energy to such a beautiful project. Coming from the legislative work that I did for a couple of years, the contrast could not be more radical. The governmental side of things, and no offense to anyone, is layered in sort of, well, I'm just going to say it, a waste of time and treasure compared to the kinds of connections and real service that one can provide in a place like Moving Arts or True Kids. If I weigh it out, like the rest of the time on the planet, I am totally down for doing this. It's more measurable. It is definitely more impactful and is changing the world. I'll stop there.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Roger. It's very, what y'all do is very inspiring and wow. In terms of just having impact and creating meaning, it's so cool. And I'm very excited just to roll along. And speaking of changing the world and being very cool and having amazing impact, I had the privilege of visiting, going out to Zuni in January. I think it was January, right? Yeah. And meeting with Elroy and Talia at the Zuni Youth Enrichment Project. And wow, just what they're doing out there. It's just incredible. It's just really, really amazing. And all of these places, I encourage folks to go in person and visit in person because it's amazing. I'm so honored to have Elroy Natachu here today to tell us a little bit about the Zuni Youth Enrichment Project. And Elroy is the art coordinator. So we're right there in the sweet spot of the creative industries. And we're just, very honored to be joined by Elroy today. So thank you very much for being here.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Am I coming through okay?
You could come a little closer to the mic if that's okay. A little quiet. We can mostly hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. I just had to project a little bit, but good afternoon. My name is Elroy Natachu Jr. I am the art coordinator here at the Zuni Youth Enrichment Project. We are a nonprofit that is located in Zuni, New Mexico, which is about, if you ever been through passing out New Mexico, we're south of there. So we started roughly in 2009 as a summer camp. So it was all based off of the needs of our community. From there, we've expanded and actually we're able to have this awesome building that we're in right now, roughly around 2018, 2019. And we have tons of different focus areas that we have here at the ZYEP. We have youth development, physical activity, food sovereignty, we have art, built maintenance, and also trails and outdoor programs for our youth. A lot of our services are offered to various age ranges, depending on the program in particular. It could be from as young as 4, 5, all the way to 24. Those are our service area in terms of our age range. And what I've been working on for the last 3 years, we're in our third year now, is our art department. So from there, we've been focusing a lot on entrepreneurship programming. With the programming in terms of entrepreneurship, it's very interesting that the Zuni community is very high in terms of artisans. Roughly 80% from the last census taken are all artists in one way utilizing their artwork to create income. So it's always been something that we've done throughout our culture, all the way back from when the trading through the train systems and the trade routes used to go on. But this point in time, we're having to re-educate our community in terms of making sure we comply with the Indian Arts and Crafts Act, as well as providing authentic wares and really getting everybody on the same page. So what we do is currently offer apprenticeship programs 3 times a year, our spring, summer, and fall. They range from various art forms. We have Pueblo pottery, graphic design, Pueblo embroidery. These are all art forms that are in one way or another linked to our culture. And it is a foundation and a stepping stone for reconnection, reestablishment of who we are as Pueblo people, but also to give us the tools and the empowerment that they're able to ask for the full price of their valued artwork. Because a lot of times we have individuals that come into our communities and buy very low, sell for very high. And we're trying to provide that empowerment through offering our youth the voice to establish themselves not only as artists, but as us as a community in Zuni reestablishing our art market. So what we love to do here at ZYP is really provide for our youth in various ways through a strengths-based approach. Hopefully, I'm not lisping too much. Strength-based approach. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. No worries.
But with that, we like to focus on the positive, not really the negative. So that way, we're creating healthy youth that grow up into healthy adults, whether that be part of their physical wellness, mental wellness, spiritual wellness. We're trying to look at all forms and really provide the needs of our community, whether it be from health to art. All things can be utilized in that way. But that's who I am here at the Zuni Youth Enrichment Project, not program. A lot of people say program, but we're a project.
Did I say program? I think I said project, right?
Oh no, a lot of people do. You know, usually stick to program, but we're a big
Right.
project. And so we got a lot of cool things going on here in Zuni. If you ever want to find us, you can find us on our, if you type in ZYP to Google, it will pop up somewhere.
Nice. Yeah, thank you so much, Elroy. Yeah, I encourage folks to check it out. Really beautiful physical space. I mean, there's so many things y'all do, and I know you didn't even mention like food sovereignty. Maybe you did. You mentioned health, yeah. And just I remember being struck by that aspect of it with all the work that y'all are doing out there. And I want to maybe sort of kick things off from something you said because you were talking specifically about a community where 80% of people are artists, artisans, making money off of trade, selling, right? And you were talking about part of your work being to sort of steer young people to value what they make and sort of try to help young people get away from some of the practices that people from the outside um, that have been exploitative, right? And I sort of wonder for Roger and Pete, like in working with young people, right? And facing the world as it is, where I mean, it's never probably been like easy to be an artist in the world, but especially these days, there's so many challenges. And how do you feel like the work that you're doing is helping young people sort of navigate the difficulties of being an artist as they enter or being artistic as they enter this world where it's really hard, Does that question make sense?
Totally. Yeah, Pete, you want to go first? Is Pete there? Mr. Pete?
You're on mute, Pete. You're on mute.
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess sort of, let me rephrase the question just so that because I mean, you're asking like, how do we show them a path to making a career out of being an artist? Well, it's sort of, it really goes back to, some of the things I was saying in the intro is like, these are skills. They don't come overnight. What takes me 10 hours to edit something might take a student 100. And I can charge more because of that. I can turn it around fast. The image will be in focus and it'll look good and I can color and so, we're sort of, I mean, a lot of the students we get that, they're so used to the phones and, just this quick and easy thing. And thank God there's still craft, that there's still these advanced tools. And it's like the tools keep getting more advanced. You can do crazier and crazier things with them. And the craft just kind of changes, especially now with AI. I mean, we had kids in here today generating AI images on Photoshop, and there's ethical questions to that, and I still don't know how I feel about that, but I mean, for me, it's like I start kids. I start kids on a very basic level. A photograph. How do you take a photograph? There's 3 things: f-stop, shutter speed, and ISO. I will repeat this like until they can repeat it back to me. And that might take 10 times for them to learn, but but there's obviously a booming film industry here, and there's so many, I mean, we're in a very like visual world. So, I think that again, just introducing them to the tools and introducing them to all the tools. I mean, this is also, we have to acknowledge that they're in a phase where they're just trying stuff out. They don't know if they want to be in front of the camera, behind the camera, editing. I mean, it takes different personalities to do different things. So I think it's about, introducing them and also, we try to pay our students. We connected with the Department of Workforce Solutions to help get them paid. And if they can't go through that, or when that runs out, we still pay them. Because this is the real world. And the
Can you
kids out
talk a
there,
little bit about that specifically? Like how do you collaborate with it? Because that's a cool
they
connection you made.
they
Yeah.
came to us. It was initially called the Level Up program, and then I rebranded it as like the pre-apprenticeship program. And it was just such a no-brainer. Students can work up to like 20 hours during the school week, or up to 40 hours in the summer. And they can basically get paid to train. Like, if they want to be at home watching a video on how to color in DaVinci Resolve, they can do that. And we can log those hours. And anytime they show up at our office and they're, helping us create a video, they get paid for those hours. So it's pretty straightforward. You definitely have to jump through some hoops, but it was a really great program. And unfortunately, I mean, we had like over 20 kids signed up. And we had connected with other organizations to sort of, we're right next to Taos Alive, and we had a couple kids working on a teen drug addiction documentary. We had some kids in the tech department connecting with Kit Carson Electric to see if they could, get interested in how to set up a network, how to do all that stuff. But I don't know what the fate of it is. My understanding is that it's going to be reduced to 5 kids next year. I don't know. Moving Arts has this program as well. It's really great. It just makes it a no-brainer, because as nonprofits, like, we don't have endless funds, and it's struggled to get grants and such. So, it just makes getting them in the door. And really, this is a safe place. It's, I mean, I don't really like the phrase safe space. The world is not the safest place in the world, but I do think that this is a place for kids to come and not do other things that are detrimental to their health. That's what I think. Whether you want to call that a safe space, whatever, I don't really care what you call it, but what they're doing is they're coming and they're in a space that is, regulated in a certain way, where and just things are available. Tools are available. If you want to create, you can create. And we have staff around to help you learn how to do this stuff. Because like I said, it's not easy, but anyway, it definitely is about a career path. I mean, we're constantly trying to get kids, I mean, I have a kid here right now. It's like, he's an amazing photographer, and half the time it's self-esteem. It's like they have to find the faith in themselves to go into the world and be like, hey, I'm talented. Because half the time they're so beaten down by the time they get here that it's like, I don't even have the motivation to start my own business as a photographer. What are you talking about? Like, I suck. Parents don't want me. Why would anybody else, And it's like, we have to instill in them the faith in themselves that they can create, and then they can make a living at this stuff.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah.
Really great.
Does that resonate with your work as well, I imagine, Roger?
Yeah, it does. Pete turned us on to the Workforce Solutions pre-apprenticeship program right at the tail end of this.
And I put a link to that in the chat for folks as well.
Fiscal year, and it was remarkable, because in our setting, we have so many opportunities, and it totally infused, cash for us, in essence, to be able to hire these youth through traditional arts mentorship, or part of the film initiative, or the culinary arts. We had all these layers. We ended up with 18 interns this last session. It was vibrant and really amazing. And I think, to Pete's point, it is about that belief in oneself that's the most transferable skill. As I said, it's not necessarily that we're trying to create a painter or a Juilliard to enter the art world. I think the transferable skills are learning to navigate the real world, to be given the confidence to manage a small project and then a slightly bigger and a bigger, and to try a bunch of things and to be paid for it. Our kids, particularly in rural areas, are in dire need. The sad thing that I learned about this particular wonderful project is that now they're going to limit it. They were very expansive, and now they're saying that it's only for construction trades and you cannot do all of the arts mentorships. So they just told us that this new fiscal money that's coming has a lot more limitations. So I'm a little sad by that because I think they were onto something and now they're retracting it back. So I don't know if anybody out there in cyberspace is listening, but the Department of Workforce Solutions needs to be more courageous and less limited by policy regulations at the national level. For so long, the WIOA program was a disaster in Rio Arriba County. We were returning $2 million every year because
Wow.
nobody was using the damn money.
Wow.
Now the pre-apprenticeship program expanded the parameters and the opportunities. So I don't want to go on too long, but to answer your question about preparing artists, for me, it's those transferable skills about teamwork, thinking critically and honestly about the world, and then having the audacity, right, to express that through art making or some way to change the world. At Moving Arts, it's remarkable. After 17 years, we have a whole cadre of youth that we've had for 10 years or 12 years or 15 years. They have lived with us here. And now they're returning with degrees, with vision to kind of take over and drive Moving Arts. And it's not necessarily as a pianist, but it's as an administrator or a project manager on some cool thing, a Google Kids initiative, and to me, that's contributing to the world in such a beautiful way. The Yazzie Martinez court case, the mandate that the Supreme Court in New Mexico basically said that, the New Mexico Education Department is not providing tribal, indigenous students, Hispanic students with the competency they deserve, basically, is a frame that I think we are challenging, and it has repercussions when you think about driving economies, because back to this whole notion that New Mexico is such an incredible landscape, literally and figuratively, to build an educational system from. We have decided, and people in the legislature are so limited in their vision, that it's more about being as non-creative as we can with this construct that needs to be overhauled. It's waiting for a transformative injection of let's make this about New Mexico. Let's celebrate what this space is to prepare kids to take on the world. I mean, that's where that resiliency that I think Pete was talking about, they need to believe in their language and their culture and their place and the land-based ways that make us so remarkable as a state. We ignore it when we should be. And back to the case, the mandate of the Yazzie Martinez is let's get on with it. Let's create schools that believe that outdoor education is critically important, that reforestation is one example to battle the fires and caring for our watersheds. I mean, look at the Hermit's Peak Canyon fire and the devastation for now generations are going to have to recover. We could respond with dynamic career pathways and flood the funding for kids to go into that direction.
Yeah,
I could go on, but I digress.
No, I mean, and that's I mean, with you 100%, absolutely. And the nature of empowering creativity as economic development, and that all of these, these soft skills. I mean, the World Economic Forum said that the most important skills of the future are creativity and collaboration and all these things that, and I swear that this comes into my mind organically, and it's not just a commercial, but on Friday at 3 p.m., we've got Deputy Secretary of Higher Education, Dr. Patricia Trujillo, talking with Dr. Manuel Montoya, and I know that they are going to have a pretty lively conversation about this as well. We got some folks in the poll asking about sort of ideas for growing their own youth-focused program. So I want to turn the question into a thing I told myself in the chat that I was going to remember, and maybe start with Elroy, because you said that the Zuni Youth Enrichment Project started as an after-school program, right? And then grew from there. So can you tell us a little bit about how you were able to sort of scale what you do from where it started? Does that make sense?
Yes, so it started out as a summer camp first.
I'm sorry, I got it mixed up. Yeah, I
No
got it mixed
problem.
up. I'm sorry.
So it started off with a simple question of what are you doing this summer? From there, it started snowballing. We needed to identify focus areas in which we could utilize it to make it fun, but also enriching. From there, things started moving from a small little idea to a board and to get all of our policies and procedures together. It kind of was really empowered by input from our community. The space that we're in currently is all artist informed. We're in kind of like a area within our community that has a lot of sacred ties to it. So because of that, we had our local artisans, our local religious leaders, and these are often who we lean on for a lot of our art-based programming or cultural things that we need to take care of to ensure that it is all programming provided from input from our community. Not just, oh, I think this is cool idea, let me try this. We're trying to meet the community in terms of what is good for our youth, but what can we do to engage all parts of our community? Even though we focus primarily on youth services, there's also chances for their brothers, siblings, aunts, uncles, grandparents to create those intergenerational connections. Because that's what a lot of times we're missing from small communities, especially Native American communities. It was heavily intergenerational until the westernization, colonization came into play, where big group families living in one household started to separate because it was the norm. Once you reach 18, you get kicked out of the house and you survive on your own. Originally within our village and cultural systems, we had grandparents, uncles, brothers, sisters, all living in one household. And then as we go on, we notice that connection in terms of communication or the transference of ideas, ways of thinking became limited. So this is where a lot of our programming was geared by the needs of the community. We need more intergenerational connections, more connections with our elders, with our culture, with high rises in health disparities. We need more physical activity added into our programming to make sure our youth stay healthy. But also with the youth development side of our programming, we need to make sure that they are set up for success. So that's where a lot of our key focus is in. And then in terms of our funding, it's kind of a crazy Frankenstein monster. We survive on grant. So that's
Yeah.
where we have to learn how to figure out ways to make it work for our multiple departments. There might be some cross connections here and there, but it's all about the mission of keeping everything in line into the point of making sure that we're making resilient youth that grow up into healthy adults, whether it be through multiple foundation points. But the way we utilize that is providing them with role models, with mentors, individuals that they can look up to within our community that we do have. We just have to pull them out of their shells most of the time, or give them a chance. And this is where we utilize a lot of things like our summer camp program, where we offer camp counselor kind of positions where they can learn to do those leadership roles, learn to communicate with the youth, and learn to really be self-sufficient. Self-sufficiency is one thing within our community that through all of our programming, whether it be in school, out of school, because we are, as ZYEP, we're all over the place. We're in our public school systems. We have after school programming, summer camp, art initiatives, food sovereignty initiatives, where it's all about learning how to grow your own, food, produce it, save, things of that nature. From the standpoint of our organization, we're all over the place, but it's for the best outcome of what our community decided are key factors that should be targeted and really expanded upon. And we're trying our best to meet all of these different kind of things. Some things work, some things don't, but it's all about the resilience. And that's where us as Native people, people of color, we're always resilient. We always try to adapt and move forward. We might get tons of different things thrown at us from multiple angles, multiple interactions, but as long as we are resilient, and this is why we really focus a lot on our culture into our programming, is it is our foundation and it is our tie to who we are as people. It keeps a lot of our youth grounded with the outside influences of negativity and disparities that happen. So with a lot of our programming, we are always striving for creating role models and future leaders that one day will take our spots that we're hopefully leading on. I know a couple of my apprenticeship students that are pretty good fits for the position that I'm in currently. Hopefully they come back and take my role one day when
Yeah.
I'm done, when I'm done.
Yeah. Right. Not before you're ready. I mean, that's
Yeah.
I mean, that's such a beautiful answer and such a really comprehensive portrait of how y'all have grown. And yeah, I mean, I'm really struck by what you mentioned about multi-generational communities, really. I mean, often talk about households, but communities, and how you centered that in your youth focused program. And I think that that's like, talk about like a great tip. It actually reminds me anecdotally. Well, first I will say that in my research, New Mexico does actually have one of the highest percentages of multi-generational households in the whole country. And in fact, the highest percentage of non-traditional households in the whole country, is the most diverse state in that regard, which is kind of interesting. But then also a story, I remember for this project, I was in Harding County, in Roy, actually, in Harding County. And folks were talking about how there was nothing for the kids to do. And then someone brought up this, oh, there used to be this project that this one very, beloved high school teacher did, where this teacher connected young people with, older people in the communities and had them do these stories. And then the young people would put on this performance based on the elders, stories. And it was like everybody in the room was like, oh yeah, I remember that. That was so cool. We should do that again, And it's just like that energy that's like sparked is so huge, because I mean, youth is an intergenerational raising, right? Kids intergenerational project for sure. Maybe sort of turning the question over to Pete and Roger, what is, for folks trying to build programs like this, maybe, what's like maybe one surprising tip you would have for really growing it, Does that question make sense? I know it's like a short question, but it's a difficult question.
You want to take that one, Roger? You go first this time.
Yeah, probably the most important piece of the alchemy of why Moving Arts has been so successful is that we have in our hearts centered the needs and responded to those needs programmatically over time. Like we knew coming out of the school program in the 90s and the early 2000s that there was a desire to have more arts in education in general. So the after school program made sense. But since then, by adding the meal service and adding this now career technical, social emotional, and a youth diversion program that I haven't spoken about, these are critical needs that are going unmet. And as a nonprofit, we have the opportunity to courageously respond. And I think when you're in that heart space and there's that juju, if you will, to keep you moving through, it does transfer to funding. You know, there are plenty of opportunities for the myriad of things we offer, from food insecurity to social emotional to the youth diversion programs to work-based learning. I mean, it's like these are critical spots in the landscape that are like really in dire need. So I think by sitting in the need of your community, if anybody out there is listening and wants to start something, really make sure it's responding to those really important needs creatively, because that'll save you. The fact that we're addressing, you know, drug addiction and grandparents raising kids to the tune of 67% at the Espanola Valley High School is kind of a dire, you know, factoid. But the way we're responding is really vibrant and connected to community and fuels us to continue. So I'm getting at this is that nonprofit work is hard work. If you don't believe in your work and it's not driven by a real need, you're probably not going to succeed. I don't know if that was the question, the answer you were searching for.
I think that's beautifully said. I mean, and that's actually, it's sort of been a bit of a theme throughout all these discussions, like responding to external needs versus sort of internal motivations. And I'm not sure. I mean, it's sort of interesting to think about. Maybe it's something around like the artist mindset versus the service mindset or something, but it's come up again and again, and it's kind of interesting that it's come up. How about you, Pete? So you had a second to think about it now.
Yeah, in terms of like expanding programs, I mean, I guess what I was thinking about, and I don't know that we really do this anymore, but I think that this is a good way. We kind of, I feel like, I mean, we still need to recruit. I'm like losing, you know, a little group of kids from Vista Grande High School, and I was telling them, I was like, hey, you guys need to go back into your school. We got to get like the new freshmen and sophomores to come into our program. But for a while there, the process was connect with the schools, teach to classrooms. And I sort of called that like casting the net. Find out in the classroom, take camera, you know, I mean, we were taking cameras because we're doing digital arts, but like, you know, see who sort of sprouts up as like, oh, wow, they're really good at this. I have a kid here right now who I went into a classroom. We did this whatever project. You know, most of the kids are pretty checked out. They're not doing it because they want to. They're doing it because they have to. But this kid, he was doing all the editing for his whole group. And I was just like, oh, you're good at this. Hey, you should come to our, so it's like go into the classrooms, teach to the classrooms, bring them into the after school program, see how they do there, get them, you know, digging a little bit deeper. And then we can get more into mentorship, you know, come with me on this film shoot. You know, let's sit down and look at this edit together. And there's more of like a mentorship thing going on there. So that was one thing I was thinking in terms of the process. The other thing I think is, yeah, like feeding them, giving them food. And like, you know, the DWS program, you know, it's like 15 something an hour, which is really great. But even if you just did stipends, I mean, it's a good incentive. It's a huge incentive. And also it means something. They can't just coast and just hang out, and you know, and I come down on them when they do. If I see them there and here and they're just kind of hanging out, and I'm like, hey, are you on the clock? You know, and that's part of like, if you get a job, you'd be fired. You don't get to just hang out at the job. If you're supposed to be making pizzas and you're eating a slice, like, sorry, you're fired. This is a space for them to sort of learn that and not get fired. You know what I mean? So I really think that it's, you know, those are the things that can kind of get kids in and expand the program, and, you know, and just come up. I mean, I think it's also on the leadership of the organizations to let's come up with cool projects. You know, like when I was telling kids about the Lowrider documentary that I was working on, it was, oh yeah, we're going to go to the Super Show and film all the cars and interview these people, you know, and you get them to engage and come up with questions and like, you know, think creatively. but I think project design is kind of the other piece of the puzzle. We had these different future dialogues, and I had a new young lady come in with this other student who is relatively new, and they just came to see the show. They kind of came in late. They came in later to the program. They didn't get to partake in the filmmaking, but they came to the screenings, and they were after she came up and she said, I want to do one of those. I want to do the interview thing where you go around and you like interview people, so I think it's also project design. What are you doing? What are you doing? Is it like, I think you want to feel, even as adults, you want to feel like you're part of something important.
Absolutely. I mean, well said. Yeah, I think that all of those, yeah, just really, really insightful. Yeah, again, about making those connections, right? And it's funny, you mentioned lowriders. Shout out to the Espanola Lowrider Association, which is having an event this Sunday at the Bond House parking lot. That's actually about this, the life of building a lowrider. You're going to have some youth-oriented activities. And that's going to be real cool for folks who can make it out to Espanola. I want to just circle back to um, and I'm not allowed to say anything that could be constituted as lobbying, but I wonder, Roger, let me just ask you the question. You mentioned, that you feel it's sort of a shame the way that this particular pre-apprenticeship program has shifted. Are there if folks who are at this panel are interested in learning, maybe agree with you or interested in learning more about it, are there folks who are thinking about that and working on that right now that you know of, or maybe you Pete, or anybody? Does that question make sense? Like, who are maybe passionate about like figuring out what's possible to change it back to when it was good.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure the inner workings. When you have a federal program of that magnitude, there's
Right.
policies that drive it. So when it comes down to the state level, the fact that
So
they
the
were able
money was
to,
actually federal money that is
yeah,
getting, okay. So that's, I see.
and then it comes through the state, and then the the work the work the boards that kind of craft regional responses, they don't have a lot of leeway to really shift it and change it. It has to be like one block. And I always argued when I was in the legislature and previous to that, that it would make sense to be more prescriptive to certain areas and their actual needs, because we know that the Rio Arriba youth maybe have considerably more barriers to entering into, say, a Waioa product than youth in Albuquerque would, because there's just so many more opportunities, so many more of volume of population, that to be able to create work-based learning opportunities that really fit the pulse and the need in a particular area make really good sense. But when you're dealing with these policy-driven monoliths, it's hard to make those changes. I was so proud and thankful that Pete brought this to us, and we contacted the Espanola agents. They came in, they were overjoyed to work with us and be creative. And then suddenly it was like back to being in this little box. And I was like,
Yeah.
what the hell? It's like, this was working. If the purpose is to take youth who need a first-time job and do it creatively and connect it to the people that drive the community, local businesses and arts organizations and agricultural base, that's a beautiful thing that was working. And it's one of the reasons that being involved in the policy making and the construct of governmental entities, it's so limiting. Like, I think that the nonprofit thrust is the best place to make change in a place like Espanola or Mora or Hobbs or Zuni. It's like, let's get on with it while we're still alive and we have some juju left to do anything. I don't know. I'm a little pessimistic, but
No.
Roger, do you know why is it like a lack of funding, or like what happened to the program that?
I'm not sure. They just told our executive director that starting in the new fiscal year, which is in about a month, we will not be able to do what we did. It's only going to
Hmm.
be certain categories, and you can't have as many.
Like it's got to be the trades.
It has to be construction trades, plumbing, electricity.
Construction
I think
trades,
they're
yeah.
looking at like, okay, where can we prove that we're
Right.
creating jobs that are going to pay X? When
Right.
they're missing the whole boat about the humanistic approach to healing and providing real opportunity in communities in need. It's very
Yeah.
boxy,
Right.
and it's not grounded in the humanistic nature of, like, I don't know. It's hard for me to move in those circles.
I hear that. Yeah. And we're in our research work, we've been looking at these programs and this program in particular and other workforce development programs and how this new division could collaborate and maybe bring some storytelling to show that these things can be in conjunction, like it reminds me, speaking of Española, and I'll sort of leave it here as we but I just put a link in the chat. I found a few months ago, and I encourage folks to go check this story out. There's a vocational high school in Sacramento that is building an EV lowrider, which is super cool. But and part of me is like, that's awesome. I grew up in a little tiny town called Oroville, which is just north of Sacramento. But a bigger part of me is like, why is this happening in Sacramento? Like, why isn't it happening in New Mexico, Um, and so I think that there's a story to be told, and I think you guys in the work that y'all are doing with your various programs are really telling a beautiful story of, I mean, the trades and the arts are integrated, and it is, as you were saying, Roger, about humanistic approach, right? And about the whole human. And so it looks like we've got somebody in the chat. Michael Murphy is asking Pete specifically about a link for the summer camp you're doing. So you might want to. Oh, we also got a raised hand. Yeah, let's take a raised hand here. I've never actually. I think this is the first time someone has raised their hand. So I'm gonna see what happens if I click on this person who raised their hand. And we'll take this. We're running a little long now, so we'll just take this last comment from Anna Reinhardt here, and then we'll sort of wrap up so we can. I got to run to another, and I invite folks to join. But let's take the comment here from Anna Reinhardt. I think that works. All right, you're on, Anna. Or Anna, I'm not sure with the vowels. Um, you're muted there. Maybe, I don't know if,
Now,
yeah, we can hear you now.
here we go. I'm wondering, buildings for nonprofit organizations is a real challenge, and the cost of leases and all, and the anti-donation clauses that the state has where, you can't pay $1 a year for the rent. And that was Warehouse 21's problem.
Mm,
We raised $3 million and built that building in the rail yard and moved in 2008. But we had two leases. One was for the land where we paid cash rent. And then the other one was for the building lease. And in lieu of paying rent for the building lease, they required like tens of thousands of dollars every month in community service benefits. And when you have to pay to come up with $20,000 to $30,000 a month in in-kind services, which
right.
meant, do you know what that means? It's like you give rentals a huge discount, you make all your programs free, and you count the stats and value it. It just was so hard to generate earned income, and we were so reliant mostly on grants and donations. And there were some years where it was really hard to raise money, like the Great Recession in 2008 that lasted for
Right.
years. But anyway, it goes on and on and on. And I guess I just don't know if other organizations have that kind of major obligation to have to give so much. And
Yeah, I
and
think
it was
I'm really happy you brought that up. I'm gonna close it off because we actually gotta run over to the next panel and use this room to do it. But I think a couple things. Let's definitely connect and talk about that as part of this research project. And I think that the story you're telling is very much applicable, and I bet these folks would agree. And maybe there's some connection that
Totally.
can happen with strategies. But I also want to shout out at 6:30 tonight, we've got Michelle NC, who is the new state historic preservation officer, and we're going to talk specifically about real estate strategies. So that I know that's not the whole thing that you're talking about, but we are going to talk about that tonight. And all right, and so that's coming. And yes, so let me just take a breath and thank all three folks, Roger, Pete, Elroy, for just telling us about their work, beautiful programs, and just really amazing work. And we're so honored and grateful, and really encourage folks to go connect with these programs, with other youth-focused programs in their community, and just keep building this together. And like Elroy said, like responding to needs in the community, building multi-generationally, I think that's really so key. And I think those are the stories that we're hearing today. So thank you all. Thank three of you so much. And thanks everybody for hanging out with us. And I'm going to go to, which one am I doing now? Oh yeah, I'm going to go to the cooperatives and collectives. And we've got Daryl actually also from Zuni talking at that one. So I'm going to head over there and encourage folks to join me, or with Roshan Davis, Carl Duncan, and Virginia Kirk for the placemaking. I got a couple choices. And we'll keep talking about this. Thank you all again.
you.
Appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Bye-bye.
Bye.